I'm going to go back a bit when I didn't have an iPhone. So very strangely, and you'll probably be relieved, I haven't got photos of a lot of the things I'm going to talk about, or I've got maybe one. Because I didn't have a phone back then. I had a big camera, but I always pointed at other people. In fact, I think selfies hadn't even been invented. So that's just to explain why there's no pictures. The beginning. That's me. When I was about 6, my dad sold racing cars made for children, and I used to go out and test drive them and race them and show them off to prospective buyers. It's my childhood memory, but that car could do 70 miles an hour. That's what I did, just for a laugh, but we would do it all the time. And we're talking about places today. Where do you drive at 70 miles an hour when you're 6 years old? Disused airfields, which there aren't many of in London, but we were in London, we went outside with the racing cars and smashed about. So whenever you get a chance to drive a racing car, I know how to drive one, but I've never done it very seriously ever since. I just know how to do it. Go-karting, everybody goes go-karting sooner or later, I expect. So birthday parties or corporate events, but again, I can drive a racing car. So, that's my daughter. She's not the fat one on the left. Oh, the right. No. And she still likes sparkly wine, especially cheap stuff. Yep, so I'm quite good at go-karting. Skiing. Now, this is another thing. I went skiing for the first time when I was an art student at Central School of Art, and on, I think, a £75 cheap package holiday out of the newspaper, and I loved it. And I thought, well, how am I going to do this again? Because, speaking of place, there aren't any mountains in London, and there's not an awful lot of snow. But I managed to figure out, and I didn't have any money either, that dotted around there are artificial ski slopes, which now they have ones with snow, but back then they had ones with plastic. And so I've learned if I qualified as a ski instructor, I'd be allowed to ski there for free and practice skiing, which I wanted to be able to do even better when I finally went back to the real snow. So I was actually a professional ski instructor for 11 years, but just at the weekends. But I learned I'm a really good beginner, basically. And then somewhere along the way, I got into snowboarding. And being one for looking for just being different, basically, I would not like to play cricket or rugby or anything where you're all at the same. So the first time I went snowboarding, now lots of people say they've been snowboarding a long time. When I first went snowboarding, I'd seen an article in a Sunday magazine, and so I was intrigued, and because I was a ski instructor, I could basically talk to other ski instructors in resorts. So I was in a place called Cervinia in Italy, and I had to ask around the town, has anybody got a snowboard? And basically I found a waiter in a hotel who had one, and he just explained to me how to do it. He adjusted the bindings clips to fit my feet, and he just let me have it for the day. So no instructions other than no idea how you do it. But the funny thing is, it was sort of illegal, so I wasn't allowed to take it on a ski lift. I literally had to wear sawn-off skis, the front end of a pair of skis, to ski and to be on the chairlift and go up the mountain, then put them in a rucksack and come down on the snowboard. And that was my first experience of snowboarding. This one, back to the selfies. This tickles me because that is a selfie. And it's sort of some sort of irony. Skiers like to do powder eggs, and I'm a snowboarder, and that's my shadow. There you go. Milos, I might need you for the, where is he? For the next bit. And then here's a story. I was a snowboard instructor for 8 years. I don't know how to press the sound button. Is anybody here from Calgary? Oh, she just walked in. Woo! Do you remember 1988? Oh no, you're not that old enough. The Winter Olympics, Eddie the Eagle. Well, I taught Eddie the Eagle. I did, literally, and I did it for the BBC. I didn't teach him to ski jump. I taught him after the Olympics, I taught him to snowboard. But you don't have to believe me, because Eddie can tell you.
Eddie Deagle here, and I'm up at Gosling Ski Centre here in Welling Garden City, and I've seen a lot of snowboarders on the slopes recently, and I thought, let's go and see what all the fuss is all about. I thought I'd go myself. I'm at the top of the nursery slope, and I've got Christian with me, my snowboard instructor. Good morning, Eddie.
There you go. Things back in the day, in England, we only had 3 TV channels at the time, basically. And on the weekend, 2 of them would play sport. So Grandstand and World of Sport would be on pretty much all day. One or the other, once a year, would show the World Frisbee Championships, probably in California, where you've probably all seen the dogs running and jumping and catching frisbees and the sort of stuff that entertains. But this one time, they said, oh, and next weekend, the UK Championships are going to be in Richmond. So I thought, oh, I've got to go and see what that's really all about. So I went to Richmond, found people who played Frisbee. Turns out they all go to Holland Park, speaking of places. So Holland Park is like Bohemia for odd sports. So juggling, unicycling, Frisbee. And you know, I was very lucky because the people who happened to play there were pretty much world champions, and I learned very good stuff very quickly. So I was actually given a made-up award once just for a laugh, but I'd actually been in the most world championships, European championships of any Frisbee player at some point in my past. In fact, oh, I've got a rude word. So if anybody don't like rude words, cover your eyes now. So I used to pay for my trips overseas to play Frisbee by designing T-shirts, which I sold when I got there, and that covered my journey, and Frisbee players like to collect Frisbees and T-shirts. Look, World Frisbee Championships T-shirt. I'm actually sort of juggling with Coca-Cola tins there, which was part of getting into hacky sack, which might be the next thing. Now, so I must apologise because it's a really embarrassing photo, but there aren't many. And I was competing in the European Championships and representing Great Britain, so I thought I was really jack shorts. It's great when you need somebody to take the piece. Look, that's the ball like that. So I came fourth in European Championships, which is pretty good because the 3 that beat me were all full-time professionals. So I'm still quite good at that, but I haven't played for about 20 years. Is anybody here from Berlin? Any Germans? No, okay. Oh yes, thank you. That's, what year is that? Hold on. 1987. I was paid to go to Berlin and play hacky sack. So there aren't many people from Berlin who have actually been in the Berlin site and I'm on page 3. I'm definitely not in 1987, but that tickles me. It's a Danish guy, Torben Wigger. Now, here we go. This is the proper story. Cycling. Sorry, the third story I was asked to speak about. I probably got this badge when I was about 7 years old or something, and I loved cycling through fireman's hoses and cones at school and getting this certificate that said you were a safe cyclist or something. I loved it so much I did it 3 times and got 3 of them. It's true. But that's about 50 years ago. I mean, it could be 49 years ago, but it's quite a long time ago. From there, no real serious cycling except I went to college. And my first college was 10 miles away, and my second college was 25 miles away, and then you do that both ways. You do an awful lot of cycling, but just in T-shirt and normal clothes and bicycle straight and well. And then this happened. This was my first ever cycle to Cannes. Is Peter popped down, or is he stood upstairs? So James is here, aren't you? Where's James? Hey, so James started this thing, along with Peter upstairs, of cycling to a conference every year in Cannes called Midland. In fact, lots of people probably have done or are about to do that. This is the first time I did it. Look, I didn't even look like a cyclist then. Yeah, so that's 12, 13 years ago. And then this is my first race, which came further along the line, maybe 3, 4, 5 years later. That's me in second. I didn't finish anywhere near second because that's naive bike racing. Everybody goes zoom at the last minute and you come last. But I tried. So I kept racing for 4 years and got quite good at it. And yeah, didn't crash. Let me see, bear with me a second. So places. Bike racing in central London, there's at least 4 full-time bike circuits. This is actually an MOD site in Surrey where there's no cars because it's an MOD site. It's very easy to ride fast safely. also where Top Gear do a lot of their filming. And there's 3 other purpose-built cycling roads for racing, where people race pretty much every single day without having to deal with cars. Hill climbs, if you're skinny like me, you've probably got an advantage on most. So this is Swains Lane, which is like a mecca for hill climb racing, which if you're bad at cycling uphill, go up Swains Lane. And if you're good at it, try and go up it as fast as me. And then the velodrome, Olympic velodrome, Mike Taylor, I saw him last night, who designed that with Hopkins, do that too. So the velodrome is perfect for that. Regent's Park, now James Bowen, I am going to point at you. So this is where I really learned to cycle properly, and I'm actually going to talk about Regent's Park and cycling. There you go, last bit. That's our circuit, as taught to me by James over here. Quick, go on, please, because I've got loads of cyclists here who don't know that you taught me everything I know, except a little bit more.
What time is it?
He taught me to ride round and round without crashing. He's very bossy, he shouts a lot, but now I do it instead of him. And this bit that's special, some people, well, most people cycle anti-clockwise, but most people don't know why they do it. I know why we do it, because he taught me. So basically, if you always turn left, you don't have a car can't pull out on you and T-bone you like Prince Philip can. And it is a royal park, so if you go clockwise, it's a little bit more dangerous. It's kind of okay, but you get the idea. So we used to actually literally detour through the middle to actually turn left every opportunity to turn left. And that's what happens. Thank you, Joe. That was 2007, he taught me that, and now I teach an awful lot of other people to do that. Simon is as well. So we generally congregate at the zoo gates. It's just a very good place to meet, to actually recognise where you're at. So I go to Regent's Park a lot. I mean, people probably think that's weird, it's boring. I've actually cycled a lot more than all the way around the world in Regent's Park since I started with James. And just in case you don't know, that's 40,075 kilometres, I think. I've done a hell of a lot more just going around Regent's Park, and I'm still going around Regent's Park. I love it. So why Regent's Park? I was going to show some X-rays. Where's Craig? But I thought, no, I better not talk about accidents because all my friends will laugh at me. I've never crashed in Regent's Park, and I've never crashed in a race. I just crash everywhere else. This is my imaginary gang, which we call giraffe spotters, because we meet in front of the. Well, it's a real gang. It's just being a club is sort of just made up, because we meet very close to where the giraffes live. Hands up, how many of you are here, giraffe spotters? Oh, they're all a bit shy. So, why is Regent's Park special? It's a place where you're not the only one. So, when we first rode 10 plus years ago, there were very few cyclists in Regent's Park. Now I can pretty much guarantee the right time of day there'll be between 1 and 200. And it's normal in cycling to cycle with other cyclists. It's actually normal to ride really close to them and work together with complete strangers spontaneously, which is rather nice. It's round. You were talking about squares, weren't you? It's round. It's kind of funny, but it sounds really obvious. But because it's round, it doesn't matter how long you go for. You can go for 5 minutes, think, I'm going to start moving and go home again. But basically, after 8 minutes, you're back where you started. Or you can go for 8 hours. It doesn't matter. That's quite convenient. You'll be back where you started. And there's the unspoken rules, which, if you know how to ride, which is what I teach, which is what James taught me, you can ride closely and safely, and you actually know what each other person is doing without actually having to say anything verbally at all. You just a bit like dancing together. So this is my group training to cycle to Cannes. I'll get close to the end, honest. That's not so sort of spontaneous, except we do it every Wednesday morning. So tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning we'll be there. People who are training to cycle or want to cycle for exercise, it's quite difficult to have your work life and cycle regularly. So it's quite common to cycle very early in the morning. So, so that's not night, that's morning. Before work, the reason being your family's not going to miss you because they haven't woken up yet, and you're not going to have a meeting that you're going to miss because it's too early. That's why we ride early, and we ride all weather. There we go, that's the photo one. That's Rob, he's a coal miner. And snow. Snow, I love snow. Remember I was a ski instructor? This is Eleanor in the front row, who I have to thank, by the way, because she helped me put the photos on the computer because I don't have a clue. Me and her were the only ones that turned up one Saturday from our club, Islington Cycling Club, where we normally have between 80 and 100 people there on a Saturday morning. Just us two idiots. She said she had 5 pairs of socks on. Oh, that's my, yeah, I had to stop when it didn't work. You can see, kind of see how it didn't work. This is actually Regent's Park last March, I think. Because it had snow for a few days, I was able to put slightly knobbly tyres on it and ride on, well, I'm going to say on the grass, not that you could tell. It took 45 minutes to do a lap, and normally takes me 8 minutes, but it was great fun. So we've got any built environment professionals here? Probably quite a few of you. Yeah. No active frontages. That's why Regent's Park is so bloody good for cycling. Because there's no places for cars to stop for many reasons. The zoo, the American Ambassador's house, that's why we've got this roadblock, because they built Trumpton for Mr. Trump to visit. But that won't stop us either. Look, road closed, residence access only. Sorry, we're cycling. Can I swear once, Andrew? Fuck Trump. There you go, Craig. That's Craig White and others going through the turnstiles. Just keep going, whatever. What's also special about Regent's Park is when you're done, you can stop and have a coffee, and it's just helpful. Socially, it's really magic. And you can hang out. There's Andrew, amongst others. Oh, so that's almost the end. One more thing. Lots of people here, but especially me, are about to cycle 900 miles in 6 weeks' time and need to raise money for it. So if you'll give me money after this, I've got a business card I'll quite happy to give you later. Sponsorship will be most welcome. Thank you.